It's the best, hands down.
It's crystal clear.
I love it. The things you can make are awesome.
No one else has quality epoxy like this.
It's easy to mix.
Tim is such a wealth of knowledge.
It's gotta be iCoat.
Welcome to the Resin Mastery Podcast, exploring iCoat epoxy.
Welcome to Resin Mastery, exploring iCoat epoxy. I'm Rachael. How are you doing today, Ian?
I'm doing great. It's a great start to the new year, and really looking forward to what this year has to offer for us. The podcast's off to a flying start. We're really excited about that, and it's exciting with more guests to interview and talk to about what they're doing in the world of flower preservation, epoxy resin, and just basic creativity, which is amazing for the soul.
You know, I'm all about creativity. And we actually have somebody here today who also is all about creativity.
We sure do. Rachael from Blossom and Rhyme, thank you so much for joining us today for this chat about your amazing business. You are a pioneer in the world of flower preservation.
Thank you. That's very sweet. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I've been looking through your website and obviously following what you've been doing for a while. It's amazing. It really is. It feels like when you look at your company as if you've had something that's been in business for 40 years. It's really mature. It's really in depth. It's attractive. It's creative. How did you get here? So maybe introduce to the audience and tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are.
Well, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you. That I never get tired of hearing about that because it's so funny. You know, I've been in business for 4.5 years and I started so small that hearing compliments like that, it's like, really, me? Am I that deserving of that kind of recognition?
Yes.
So
yeah.
It's really sweet and amazing to do things like this. But yeah, so I'm Rachael Croxall. I started my business 4.5 years ago. I am based out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I had lost my job at a wedding venue in 2020 during the pandemic. We all know that was a crazy, scary time and just a sad time. And so I remember thinking in just the midst of such a dark time, I wanted to somehow bring happiness to people and light and just something we were constantly being bombarded with news of COVID and other things and just disasters in the world. And so after I worked at the wedding venue, I realized that I had a huge passion for weddings and brides and couples and preserving your memories, because I would witness hundreds of weddings yearly where the day would go by just like that. And you spend so much prepping for the day. You spend some brides spent years planning their wedding, and for it to go by within 12 hours, it was such a sweet day. And I got to witness so many beautiful weddings, but it would go by so fast. And I remember I had a wedding before I started this company, and I wanted to just save every little bit of the day that I could, because I'm very sentimental. I want to be able to show my kids one day everything and pull out, the box from the attic and say, this is, I don't know, the wedding invitation that we sent out and things like that. And so what I started to do is play around with resin. When I lost my job, actually before I lost my job, I was already playing around with it. And I had actually created a river resin table in college, and I just fell in love with the medium because there's so many different things you could do with it. And then I realized that there are so many brides throwing away their flowers after the wedding. And so I took that idea, and then I also took the idea and the love that I developed for resin. And I thought, I could make these little necklaces and just kind of start from there. And so from their wedding flowers. So I started taking a few clients here and there after some practice, and I would preserve little tiny petals and necklaces for the couples from their wedding day. And it just blew up. It just went crazy. I had a lot of support from the community around me here in Chattanooga, which is completely something that blew my business up at the very beginning, in a small way, but still kind of in a big way too. So that's where I started. And then from there, I started to have clients ask me if I could do bigger preservations, like a full bouquet. And of course, that's very nerve-wracking because it's like you go from a necklace to a big bouquet, and that's pretty nerve-wracking, but I took it on.
Rachael, there's people that have told stories about how their house is on fire and they rush in to save things, and the things that they look to save are photos, memories, right? It just shows with what you're doing in this preservation space, how important those memories actually are for people. And I think you've been, along with a few others, but instrumental in making that preservation of that wedding bouquet, that a lot goes into it in the first place, and preserving it as a memory going forward, and as a very clear memento of that moment, that marriage, that's become really important, and I think continues to grow.
Absolutely. I love what you said about that people grab photos from their house when it's burning. They're not going to grab, their Gucci purse or, whatever. They're going to grab the photos and the memories. And yeah, so that's exactly why I do what I do. And it's in a great summary.
Wow, I love that. I love to hear how much passion is in your voice and, how much you really appreciate that and those little moments. Because I always try to say, and like I know Ian may have heard this from me and maybe the audience already has, but life is made up of every single one of those little moments, and as many as we can hold on to and take with us, especially kind of just having that, I guess not permanent, but as permanent as possible, as tangible as possible, a reflection of that beautiful day that they got to share. That's amazing. And who knows, maybe someday when I get married, I'll end up having my bouquet, preserved too, hopefully through you.
Yeah, well, we would love to do that. It'd be an honor.
So Rachael, when did you get first introduced to iCoat?
So it's kind of a crazy story. So, in 2021, there was a resin shortage, and I think that there was something going on in Texas where there was like this giant freeze, and I was working out of my home at the time. This was after a video went viral, so I was dealing with a lot of orders, and I went without resin for about 3.5 months.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
That was very difficult. I remember panicking, and I was calling around everywhere trying to find resin. I just could not, there was just a resin shortage. And so I spoke with Tim with iCoat, and I realized that we would be a great fit moving forward, and he was able to supply us enough resin to continue on with our production and catch up on past orders as well. So what stood out to me with iCoat was the customer service and feeling like I was their only client, even though I wasn't. That's obviously, the resin has great quality. It's as non-toxic as resin can be. So it's a safe resin, it's a clear resin, and the customer service was just great. And that's exactly what I needed during that tough time of a resin shortage.
Yeah, I remember when that happened, actually. And there was I think either a chemical plant went down, you're right, there was a frost. And I remember the work Tim was doing to make sure that he kept his supply lines open where others. And look, it's a testament to how long he's been in business that they gave him priority because he'd been buying and crafting his resin. So he doesn't just buy stock stuff. He actually, the chemistry that goes in from his father and him, and that relationship. And that just shows where relationships matter as well.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So, Rachael, I was actually wondering because, I know that for some of our audience, it can be, maybe it's not right for me to speak for them, but I know for me, as somebody who doesn't own their own business, the idea of starting that can be a little bit daunting. So I was just wondering, how and when did you transition from kind of making this a hobby into the business that you have now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I realized when I started to see that support from my community that this was bigger than what I had originally thought it would be. And so I was honestly at the time trying to figure out if I go back to school or pursue Blossom and Rhyme full time. And I remember praying, I'm a Christian, I remember praying, asking the Lord if for a sign, basically. And within 3 days of me praying that prayer, a video received 40 million views on Instagram. And so kind of one of those things where I'm like, oh, wow, that's a sign. Okay, I'll take that. Pursuing this as a full-time career. So I immediately took that. I mean, it's one thing to have a viral video, but it's another thing to really scale your company and monetize off of it. So I took that video. I had 500 emails in my inbox the next day. My whole family and I sat down and answered every single one of them. I didn't put a cap on my orders. I was very big with customer service and getting back with people in a timely manner. I was very consistent on social media after that. I didn't just ride that wave. Like, I continued to post and build my business. And it was overwhelming at first, but I did decide to scale. So I started out of my home, and I always tell people I made a lot of mistakes. I did a lot of trial and error. I, went through the whole blood, sweat, and tears thing. It was night, staying up till midnight every night, making sure that orders get put out. So it's a lot of work. It's not just kind of riding the wave of a social media viral video and then just boom, you have this business and you hire on and all that. There's a lot of work. I always say, like, it's like an iceberg. You see the viral video right here and you see a company growing, but then under that is all of this work that you don't see, and the late nights and the tears and the growing and all of that. And I would advise anyone who does start from a hobby and want to grow to be very protective and be very careful of those who you have in your corner too. Like, be very selective, because what I realized once I started going viral, all these people started flooding towards me, like businesses, and like, hey, can you do this for me? Can you do this? Just be protective of your business and be selective. And then, like I always say, even just with partnerships and things, fire fast, hire slow. So not just with employees, but with partnerships, whether that be advertisement teams, marketing teams, PR, web developers, accountants, all of that kind of thing. Just make sure you spend your time. If you do grow to that point, make sure you're selective with who you hire. And then in that same breath, just like with the people who are helping you and supporting your business and being kind and genuine, make sure that you keep those people around and you hold them close, because those are the people that will really help you scale your business. So
yeah, you're in here with kindred spirits. God moves in pretty amazing ways, and I know a lot of people have prayed on things for their business and been like, "Wow, I need to be a bit more specific, and can I handle this?" And I've seen it quite a lot, which is kind of breathtaking. How the power of the Spirit moves in that, and that's awesome to hear. You've got that in there now. I read on your website as well that you include poetry. Yes. In what you do. Where does that emanate from?
Yeah, I love that part of the business. It's the rhyme within my name.
Yeah.
Rhyme. So I have loved poetry since I was a little girl. I've always been kind of a hopeless romantic. I love that poetry is a way that you can connect with the human experience with other people and realize that, you may read the same poem, you may get two completely different things out of it, but you're still feeling something on a deep level and connecting in that way. Just like art, just like other things in the kind of artist romantic world. I've always loved poetry. T.S. Eliot, Edgar Allan Poe, Emily Dickinson, the list goes on. Like, I love classical poetry. So I realized that when I started my business, I wanted to incorporate that, because I think there's so many different love stories out there, and not just love stories. We work with a lot of memorials. So I wanted to be able to express that part of my creativity within my business too, and actually write the poems myself for my clients. So at the very beginning of my business, I would write a personalized poem for every single order. Now, when I'm having hundreds of orders a month, that's not necessarily attainable, but I do have a archive of about 10 to 20 poems that I've written over the years for different love stories. And what happens is our shipping specialist will read the love story or the story behind the blooms, and then pick a poem that I've written myself for our clients to match their love story. So that's how we go about it. And if there's not like necessarily a poem that goes with like a really unique story, then I'll take the time to write it for sure. But yeah, that's something that's really close to my heart and special. And we've even had clients frame the poems next to their preservation.
Oh,
So
I love that.
yeah, it's really a special moment in a business when you add something like that in there. It really takes it to another level. Before we get on to talking about process, like you talked about your company in different ways. How big is your company? How big is Blossom and Rye? How many people are we talking about?
So this is crazy, but we now have 18 employees, not including myself and my husband, who both work very closely within the company. So with us included, 20 people. And we grew from my home, which was we were only working out of 400 square feet at the most, to now 6,000 square feet, and we own our own building. So a huge blessing, yes. I can't believe that I even say that now. So it's grown pretty big. We're the most followed social media account on Instagram with floral preservation. So we've grown our social media as well. So very, very, very thankful. Not a day goes by that I'm not humbled and blessed, and just thankful I get to do what I love and also provide jobs for amazing people.
That is absolutely amazing to hear. Wow, from 400 square feet to 6,000. That's crazy. Did you ever think that could you ever have imagined that it would have been that big? Or did you ever kind of plan for that? Or it was just out of the blue?
So I always say I'm a dreamer, so I dreamed of it happening for sure. Like my goal was, my eyes were set on, I want this to be big. So not to sound pretentious or anything, but I believed in it, and I believed it would get this big, with good people behind me and the Lord, and, tireless days and hours and nights working towards it. I knew it was possible. I just knew that it would be a long road. So, but saying that, I still walk into Blossom and Rhyme and I'm like, whoa, like, especially when it's a Saturday and no one's there, and I just look around, I'm like, this is mine. Like, this is my responsibility. So in that same, I believed in it and I knew it could get here, but I still sometimes can't believe I'm actually here,
Yeah, like almost like that little bit of like imposter syndrome. I think that comes into all of us a little bit through from time to time. But I would just like to say, and just offer this up. It really does sound like you are a true testament to that is basically the American dream, starting off as a small in-home business and scaling it to something on that level. That really is it. I think personally for me, it gives me hope in my own dreams. And I definitely think that our audience, there's probably multiple people who are feeling at sometimes hopeless about things not so romantic, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
for sure.
And that's definitely true. Like, we can do it. If you can do it, somebody else can too. So thank you so much for sharing that part of your journey with us. That's definitely vitally important, I think, for our audience to remember.
Absolutely. And I did want to add in there, I'm totally not ignorant to the fact that there are people out there that have worked for decades on their dream and it does not move. And honestly, my heart goes out to them, because, man, you are the real champion. Like, that is passion right there in its rawest form. If you continue to work at something and you're struggling to get it off the ground, like, my heart goes out to you. And one of my favorite quotes is very simple, very short, but it just says, proceed and you will succeed. So I truly believe if you continue to try and you continue to put your all into it and your time and energy, eventually it'll pay off, is what I believe. But
yeah, I agree with that statement as well. I do. I wish we could spend time on just kind of like talking about that part all day because I totally could, but I am kind of just curious about the process in which you go through. So I was just kind of wondering, like, could you tell us a little bit more about the process that you and your company specifically go through in order to preserve somebody's, like, just that very special wedding bouquet or, memorial bouquet?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd be happy to. So, as of today, we actually offer a third option to preserve your bouquet. So we have resin preservation, we have press preservation, and today at noon, we're launching still bloom paintings, and they're custom paintings of bouquets. So that's kind of a new thing we're launching today. So very excited about that. We have an in-house artist who paints the bouquets. So, but our most popular preservation method is, of course, the resin 3D preservation. And depending on the type of preservation they order, we dry the flowers in silica gel, or we press them in flower presses if they have pressed. And then after we dry them, they're in a waiting line for a little bit due to demand, and then we design them. We send every single client a free design proof. So we want to make sure that they love their preservation. I mean, these are once in a lifetime memories. So some companies charge for a design proof. We do not. It's all included. And then some companies don't even do a design, which would be a lot easier, I will say. Would be nice not to have to wait on approvals and do the design and all that. But, that's important to our brides. It's important to our couples and myself. So we do the free approval. Once it's approved, it moves on to either being framed up or layered in resin. And then we work on the finishing touches. We offer something called frosted edges, which we came up with a few years ago. And we route the edges down and make it that seamless, kind of smooth look on the outside, because it can be very sharp coming out of the mold. The resin can be, and I've actually cut myself. I probably have a scar on my hand from cutting myself. You molding them. So I'm like, I don't want my clients to have to, deal with that. So my husband actually came up with the idea. He's in construction. So we add on those finishing touches, and then we ship it off. And something we launched this year is we have a overnight discounted shipping label, because some of our clients were paying $800 to ship us their bouquet.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, that's more than some of our products. So I'm like, this cannot happen, especially, our mission statement is to stop time around precious memories by offering luxurious and accessible floral preservation. Like, that is not accessible, spending dollars on top of preservation. So we actually partnered with FedEx, and they were able to get that down to a flat rate of $120 to ship their bouquet to us, no matter where you are. So, So yeah, before that whole process begins, you can also ship your flowers using that overnight shipping label that we email to you from our website. And every single step of the way, all those different steps I mentioned, our clients receive an email automatically. When my team changes that status internally, they automatically send an email, the system we use, to the clients. So our clients, are very updated throughout the process. And with the paintings, the last thing I'll say on this is, with the paintings, this is a new option for our clients. It's the most accessible option, being that you don't have to ship flowers. All we need is a photo of your flowers. I gifted this to my mom for Christmas. Her wedding was decades ago, but I was still able to get a painting done of her bouquet, and she just loved it. She was crying, and it's going to be a beautiful thing to offer, and I'm looking forward to it. So,
Rachael, that sounds amazing. So, are you also in the space where someone could, and it just brings up a great idea, that, hey, my parents got married 50 years ago. Here's a picture of their wedding. Could you replicate the bouquet and preserve it?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yes, we can absolutely do that for resin or press. We can order replica flowers, or if you even know the florist that they use, you can order flowers from that specific florist to make it even more sentimental, and ship it using the overnight shipping label. And then, we can do a recreation, or if you just want to send photos of the bouquet to make it a little easier on you, then we can definitely do that and do a painting.
Right. Yeah, that's great. So, thinking about, the whole world of this, and someone who says, well, I'm just going to do it myself. I'm going to do the DIY route. It's maybe great when you're practicing, but if friends of mine got married and they're like, hey, I'll preserve your flowers for you, that would be a moment where you'd probably shake a little bit. Talk a little bit about, where DIY is fine and where and the hurdles you have to get over to do something as professional as Blossom and Rhyme do it.
Yeah, so I guess that depends on how sentimental the flowers are to you, right? Because if it's a wedding or if it's a memorial and those flowers hold a lot of meaning, do you really want to risk DIYing the flowers and risk potentially ruining them? Because we've had countless emails, and I'm not just saying this just to kind of say like, hey, use us, but we've had countless emails of people that said, oh man, I tried to DIY, is there any way you can fix this? And we've tried our best to fix it, but the reality is that resin, specifically resin, is very tricky. The first project I did with the table I was telling you about, I knew nothing about resin, and I poured 3 gallons of casting resin all at once into a table. And long story short, I almost lit my apartment on fire because casting resin can, if not used correctly, it can get pretty hot and be flammable. And if you don't use the correct resin, so a lot of the resins on Amazon and things like that have VOC fumes in it, and it can be very dangerous. Yeah, it can be very dangerous to your health, and if you have kids in your house and even pets, that can be pretty dangerous. Even in like if you go in Michael's or Hobby Lobby, they'll have like resin jewelry kits. Those are typically have those VOCs in it as well, which is another reason why I love iCoat, because it is VOC free. So just be really careful if you're working with resin. I always recommend booking with a professional if it's like a wedding bouquet. Now, if you pick some flowers from your garden and you just want to test things out, definitely grab some iCoat resin. I think they have like small bottles where you can test and you can run some trials and just make sure the flowers are dry. So yeah, there's I started with DIY things, so I don't want to completely trash the idea of DIY, but at the same time, if they're really sentimental flowers, just don't risk it and just book with a professional would be my advice.
Look, there's enough resin manufacturers out there, and there's a lot of bad ones. We warn about cheap Chinese resin. It comes in pretty much unregulated. It's cheap. People go, oh, look at this, I found something really cheap. And it really falls into that adage of you get what you pay for.
Yes.
We did an interview with a lady who said one of the things that amazed her was that now with using the iCoat resin that she's using, she goes, I basically just set it and forget it. She goes, where before I'd be panicking about little micro bubbles and this and that. And she said it's just made her whole world so much easier because it's formulated. They're not all the same. And it just drives us crazy when, we even get it at the office with people calling in saying, hey, I ordered this resin. It wasn't from you guys, but it just ruined this and that. It's like, well, other than tell you how to do it, which we've got best practices, we've got ideas on how you can do things and FAQ videos, which of yours we're going to cover in a second. But it really is one of those situations where if you want to do something that's fun, great, have a practice. The moment you want to do something professional, now you've got to have put the work in. Yeah,
exactly. And yeah, iCoat resin, I love it because it has a bubble release factor to it, to where you really can, with a lot of projects, use a quick heat gun over it and then set it and forget it. And it's really, really nice that it's that easy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Rachael, let's jump into some FAQs.
Sure, absolutely.
Alrighty. So to be honest, what I was kind of wondering about the pieces, just because, they're so beautiful and they are so like crystal clear. I was looking at your website and I was just like, wow, those are like dazzling, honestly.
They are amazing. Yeah.
Perfect centerpiece on a table or on a mantle, like just really gorgeous. But I was wondering, do they yellow over time at all? I know that, other iCoat pieces might not, like I've seen countertops, those stay, really good. So with something so thick, as like, the whole bouquet being in I guess the word would be encompassed in it. Do they yellow over time?
That's a great question. We get that all the time on social media, and it's a great question because actually the answer is yes. Usually all resin preservation over time will yellow to some degree. Now, this is another reason why we like iCoat resin, because it is you may know the words for it, Ian, but I think it has some
anti-ambering qualities.
Yes, anti-ambering qualities, where it actually blocks some of the light to enter into the resin. So it's really, we use a really nice resin, so it prevents a lot of that from happening. But we always just give our clients a heads up that all resin, no matter the brand, even if you have the best brand of it, when you're pouring that thick, over time it will amber. But we always say, like, I have a few pieces that have ambered, and it honestly looks almost like golden hour, when you're taking pictures and
right.
field. It doesn't look like ugly to me. Like it really just adds a glowing look to it. One thing to help with this is a black background. We do offer white and black backgrounds. If you do a black background, it kind of offsets that a little bit, and we leave that choice up to our clients, of course. But if you do a black background, it does help with that over time. And of course, if you're worried a lot about yellowing, we do have pressed pieces and paintings as well.
Yeah, and one of the things that do contribute to, and we've covered this on the podcast as well before, to ambering is heat and sunlight. Mm-hmm. And so if your piece is displayed over a fireplace, you're now exposing it to another heat source. Mm-hmm. But if it's on a shelf, which is pretty neutral temperature, and the direct sunlight isn't on it all the time, it's going to be great for many, many years. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And like you said, there's something bad epoxy ambering looks terrible. I think it looks cheap and awful. Good epoxy that ambers over a long period of time, there is that magic hour look to it that can actually be kind of attractive over time. But at the same time, as the chemical compounds that are put into good epoxies like we're doing actually improve the quality of it, it really pushes back that ability for it to amber, as long as, again, it's stored and displayed in a place where, again, no heat source and no light on it. Yeah, exactly. There are some amberings, if you do the Amazon resin or Hobby Lobby Michaels, it can look pretty dark yellow, but the ambering that I've seen is with iCoat has not been anything substantial. So. Yeah, and I think as well, if your part A and part B are stored not in the right places as well, that's just going to degrade the epoxy before it actually gets to be used, and then obviously going to break down that process quicker as well. So flowers. So I'm always amazed because I'm like, can you really put just straight flowers in? So what's the process with flowers before you actually put them into a mold? Cover them with resin, and will they fade over time, or what do you do to stop that?
Yeah, so there's a few things with that. So number one, we offer two different types of kind of coloring within the flower. We can, number one, leave them completely natural. If you do leave them natural, we dry them with silica gel, so it does preserve some of the color. But however, like some flowers change colors differently. For example, red roses go from a very vibrant red to almost a black color or a deep maroon color when they come out of the silica gel. And I noticed when I started my business, a lot of clients really hated to see that because it was such a drastic color change. So we worked around the clock, and the artist who is actually doing the paintings now helped me find a way to color the flowers back to life. So we offer both natural resin preservation and color corrected resin preservation. And we have several different methods of painting the flowers. One of them is hand painting. Another is airbrush. We have all sorts of different little techniques depending on the flower. It's not just hand painting everything. It's not just airbrushing everything. We have a certain paint we use, certain techniques to bring the flowers back to life. I always give my clients a warning if you do choose natural preservation. This is such an interesting part of floral preservation, but when they're touched the day of the wedding, either by the florist or by you and your family, it leaves something that we like to call love marks on the flowers. You're not able to see them until it's encased in resin, but you'll see these tiny little, you'll see like these tiny little transparent spots on the flowers when it's encased in resin if it is not color corrected. And that's kind of where they were touched the day of the wedding and loved on. So some clients actually, some clients love to keep them natural because that's part of the story of their flowers, where others really care about the original color. And we do offer color correction for an added fee because it's a lot of extra time, but it is a very popular add-on.
Wow, that is honestly so beautiful. I'd probably be one of those people who would keep it natural just because I think that would be like a good reminder that, like love is a mixture of things that seem so perfect at some moments and then do have those tiny little smudges on them, like that is so sentimental and almost symbolic to a point. So I love that you offer both of those options for your clients because and totally I understand why the color correcting is a little bit more expensive, definitely, because that is a lot of work to put into a piece. But for those people that do want that, I'm just glad that you have that ability to do that and that you've actually taken the time to think that over and not just kind of throw them to the wolves in a way.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's a great point. We embrace imperfections here at Blossom and Rhyme. As far as resin quality, we make it as crystal clear as possible. But as far as the flowers, we preserve what's brought to us. And sometimes it's perfect, sometimes it's not. And that's just the beauty of it. So,
that's so cool. That kind of leads me into a question I was thinking a little bit about earlier, especially when I was like looking at your website and I was just seeing all of the, the gorgeous ladies that work for you. Like if you guys check her webpage out, you will see like they all just have beautiful smiling faces and it just seems like so warm and inviting. So I was wondering like could I come visit the studio? Is that something that's possible?
Absolutely. We would be more than happy to have visitors here. And we do have visitors here quite often, especially during June and October, which is our busiest months around here in Tennessee. But absolutely, yes. Come visit us anytime. We're open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And we actually have a small little storefront at the front. If you do stop by, we have some merch and some little ready-made items, which is another thing we may be launching this year is more ready-made items for if you don't have flowers, you just want to buy a necklace, things like that.
Oh, that's awesome. And I also saw that you guys have a lovely and adorable greeter. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So my dog Harley, I think she's actually in this room with me somewhere, but she's our shop mascot. So she stays at Blossom and Rhyme. So if you do stop by the studio, you'll get to meet her. She's a little shepherd mix we adopted 4 years ago, which is crazy. She's already 4, but she's my baby and people love to see her and she's just happy to see you. And she's usually sleeping, but she's always happy to greet you and bring you a toy usually. So.
Oh my gosh, that's so precious. Oh,
Rachel,
I love dogs so much. That's perfect.
You had a amazing experience just recently because you've got pretty much 20 people working 6,000 square feet. You had a visit from OSHA.
Yes.
And they gave you some amazing results that really were awesome for us to hear and actually validated a lot of things for us again over cheaper epoxies. Can you tell us a little bit about the results of OSHA visiting your store?
Yes. So we actually scheduled this visit. I know as an owner and as a leader, it's my job to make sure that the work environment is safe, as well as for all my employees, but also for myself and my sweet dog, Harley. I have dealt with chronic illnesses the past few years, and it's something that's very important to me. Your health, without your health, you don't have anything. You can't work, you can't do anything. So I really wanted to take that next step. And I knew that OSHA is kind of the this gold standard of safety in the workplace. So I scheduled an appointment with a safety inspector, and he came by, and I was surprised by what we talked about. The things that I thought he would be worried about, he wasn't, and the things that I thought it wouldn't be a problem, it was. So
Wow.
So with the resin, what we did is we sat down, had a pretty lengthy meeting. We went over the main chemicals in the workplace, which the main ones are resin and silica gel. And he actually said that us having respirators was not a good thing because we weren't storing them correctly, which I had no idea about. But you're supposed to, number one, you're supposed to go through a health appointment, or like a, what do you call, like a physical, to make sure that you're able to breathe properly in a respirator, because it does constrict your breathing, especially for long periods of time. So he said if we do respirators, we would need to store them in plastic bags completely separate from the room. We would all have to have a health evaluation to make sure our lungs were good. But he took a look at the SDS sheets that iCoat provided for us and Activist Silica Gel provided for us, and he looked at them in depth, and he said, all you need is a N95 mask with a charcoal filter on it. He said that's plenty sufficient. So that helped us put to rest all the comments we get on Instagram where, there's a video if we don't have a mask on. I mean, people are thinking the best and they just want us to be healthy, but we get a lot of comments on social media where it's like, oh my gosh, you don't have a respirator, you're going to get lung cancer and things like that. And it's coming out of concern, but it's also out of ignorance because they don't have the SDS form that iCoat's provided for us. And they don't realize that it's actually a very non-toxic resin. And so I got all my team the N95 mask with the charcoal filter, and that's what we do. And then for silica gel, he told us there's two different types of silica gel. There's crystalline and amorphous silica gel. And crystalline silica gel is the type that's found in concrete and dust and things like that. And that's the thing that can cause silicosis, whereas amorphous silica gel is rounded and it can be naturally expelled from your lungs, so it's not as dangerous. And again, for that's plenty sufficient is just the charcoal filter with the N95 mask. So it was really enlightening, and we put some things in place, little things like we're going to test our eye wash station out that we have and learn how to use a fire extinguisher, things like that, making sure exits are clear, all of that kind of thing. It was a really productive meeting.
That's great. I know Tim really prides himself in safety. And actually we'll talk a lot of the time, if you're sanding epoxy, you need to be wearing a mask and maybe even a respirator, because the sand, when you're sanding it, your particles are in the air, you're going to breathe them in. But he's also very smart about saying we test every one of our products and guarantee and validate that they are safe to use in certain circumstances. If you're in a room with a bunch of people using it, you've got to ventilate it well. It's probably good to wear an N95 mask. But at the same time, if you're just using a small amount of it in a home project studio, you're in no exposure to anything really at all.
Yeah.
And especially ours is low fumes. I have actually used one before that stunk. And I was like, whoa, is it this bad? And it wasn't ours. And it made me think, oh my goodness, I wonder what the worst epoxies are like.
Oh yeah. It's there's some really bad, you can smell it. If it's unhealthy for you, your body's going to be like, hey, this is strong, when we're mixing resin back there, you can smell like a very tiny amount of it, but it's not anything too crazy. The OSHA guy said he couldn't even smell it. And my husband, again, is in construction. He built a ventilation system for our production room that's attached to the Craftsman drawers, which is kind of a system we came up with out of my home. And so, but yeah, he made this whole ventilation system that vents any excessive fumes outside, which is also nice.
Oh, that is so nice. Oh my gosh. I bet that was just kind of such a relief having somebody, just a wealth of knowledge about that safety, especially kind of worrying about like the silicosis and everything like that. I personally know some people that have been affected by that. And funny enough, that's from like certain kind of cat litters even. So it's like something less threatening than what you would think comes from epoxy. So that's just, it's really interesting, and I'm happy to know that you guys found out so much.
Yeah. I would like to add in there, we do have a YouTube video that goes into more depth on safety in that OSHA meeting. If people would like to go look that up, you can, because I even mentioned in there that you can get silicosis from cat litter as well.
Okay.
So that's very interesting. You brought that up, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's on YouTube if anyone wants to check it out.
That's awesome. Yes, we will definitely make sure that we go ahead and, kind of plug that too. I was also kind of wondering, in addition to that, just kind of like, so that our audience has a good idea of, like, is this something I can afford? Is this something I might have to save up for? Because weddings are already so expensive, and definitely they want to be able to remember it forever. What kind of prices do you offer for these certain different types of like products, like the one with the black background, the one with the completely clear, kind of smaller, bigger? What's it look like?
Absolutely. So, again, going back to our mission statement that we changed last year, is that we realized that weddings are expensive. There's no way around that. Like, they're pricey. So we realized that this should be a service that should be accessible by everyone. So we really worked hard this last year to make sure that we're living up to our mission statement of not compromising quality and still being a luxury brand while also being accessible. So some ways that we've done this is we offer payment plans through Shop Pay on our website. We actually dropped our custom minimum this year, so we don't have any custom minimum. This means that you can buy one necklace and a ring holder, or the smaller items if you want. There's no minimum, like you have to buy a large product, which we had that for a while, is the custom minimum. So we dropped that. And then, of course, we have the overnight shipping label that saves you hundreds of dollars on that. And then we're always running, like currently we're running, I think, a free ring holder discount right now. And then Black Friday, we have some things going on. But, as a business owner, I try my best to make the pricing fair, because we have to profit something to keep our lights on. But I also don't want to be so pricey and so out of reach that no one can afford it. So there's a reason why we set our prices the way that they are. Now, you can go on Etsy and find companies that can do it for like $200, but you have to think, are they using the highest quality resin? Will it amber really quickly? Are the bubbles going to be there? Do they offer color correction? Do they offer the different types of preservations? Do they have a team that's working, 5 to 6 days a week on my preservations? Will I receive updates? All of these things are something to consider as you're thinking about booking a floral preservationist, because we really take the time and effort to make sure it's 100% perfect, and our pricing reflects that, because we do use the highest qualities. We do have the best experts in our building working on your pieces. So that's why it's priced the way it is, but also we try to be as accessible as possible. I think our smallest item is, I think our necklaces are priced at around $40. So it starts, can start at like $40 and go all the way up to, we have a round side table, which is our biggest ticket item, which is $2,000. And it's actually one of our most popular products.
It looks amazing.
Thank you. I'm very proud of those because, part of my story is I started off with tables. So that's one thing that's very close to my heart, is the necklaces and the tables. But that's our biggest ticket item, is the $2,000 one. It's collected over 24 million views on social media. So it's popular.
I would say if anyone hasn't seen it, you've got to go to the website, blossomandrhyme.com, and actually click on the different preservation options, and then go into the store and look at some of the store things. The tables are amazing. With the flowers in the table, I mean, it's breathtaking. It really is. They're worth every penny. What do you think the most expensive thing you've ever seen sold, maybe from you or anyone else, is with resin? We did a show which was a Q&A on like fun facts, and Rachael came up with some amazing ones, but always just inquisitive on sort of how expensive some of this stuff gets.
So we offer an exclusive product here at Blossom and Rhyme for clients that are exclusively local to Chattanooga, or they want to pick up the product locally because it is so large. We typically price this at $3,000, so we're around $3,000 depending on the type of wood. But we do a live edge mini coffee table, so it's actually a coffee table made of your flowers with live edge wood that we source locally. And we spend countless hours on it, and it turns out so beautiful. That's probably my favorite product because, again, it's what I started the company with, was the river resin tables. But as far as the most expensive I've ever seen, probably an account I follow that I love is Black Forest Wood. They have a lot of like live edge wood tables. And so I feel like they have probably made some pretty giant pieces before, because they do a lot of furniture and resin work. So probably something from them. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if some of those tables are like $15,000. So.
Yeah, we heard that a fun fact. What was it, Rachel? That someone, Iceland, when they canceled McDonald's, preserved a hamburger and fries in resin, and it went for $1 million or something like that.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it was the last one that they ever made there, and yeah, I think it went for at least, I think it was like definitely over $850,000 that I heard. And I was like, dang, just for one burger, that's crazy.
Hey, maybe we should start a new line, right? Just preserving McDonald's and Jack in the Box and all this.
I've seen that done before on TikTok. There's some accounts that do that kind of thing. This was totally by accident, but when I was working out of my garage in my home, I had a ready-made coaster. So it wasn't a client order, but I had a ready-made coaster, and I came in the next day while the resin was curing, and there was a wasp stuck in the resin. So I just finished preserving him. I feel bad because, but I didn't know about it. And so we called him Jimmy, and he still sits in Blossom and Rhyme to this day. So, so that's kind of a funny fact. But yeah, there's some pieces on Museum of Modern Art store, and they have like some resin preserved flowers on there, and that goes for like $2,000, and it's just like a tiny little block. So it's interesting how there's like some stores out there that will sell ready-made products, and it's like looked at as an art piece, which ours is too, but then they upcharge it like a crazy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, we got some breaking news as well, which is that we just launched the iCoat magazine, which is going to be for iCoat users, people who actually use the iCoat products to make things, where we're going to do spotlight interviews. We're going to actually do spotlights on particular pieces that are amazing to them. So if you're out there and you're using our products, go to iCoat, the iCoat store, click on the magazine, and actually submit your works into us so we can actually spotlight them for you and just share your work with a greater audience as well.
I love that. Amazing. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Rachel, thank you so much. You're blessed. And it's been a blessing to have spent the time with you, learning more about what you do. You're employing 18 people, you're changing lives, you're preserving memories. It's phenomenal. And like our Rachel said earlier, you live in the American dream, which is really fantastic. Have you got any words of inspiration for anyone?
For sure. So like I said before, just keep going, proceed, and you will succeed, and put in hard work and do what you love. And I would say, like I said before, I'm a Christian. I believe that personally in my life that the Lord and Jesus has opened doors for me and closed doors for me as well. And just relying on him and spending quiet time in the Word, and just focusing on his direction for my life and giving each day to him is something that I hold very close. And it's something that I believe is the reason why I got here today. So just very humbled and blessed that I get to do what I love every single day, and very thankful to those who are listening that supported me along the way, and thankful for podcasts like this.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what, Rachel? It has been such an honor to have you here. And like, you literally gave me goosebumps. So
Oh,
good job. Amen to that. Like, I definitely do believe that God works in so many different ways and uplifts so many different people. But like hearing your story, I know might encourage others to kind of just take their own leap of faith, both in their business, their personal life, and it's really awesome that you are willing to share that side of yourself. And sometimes it can feel very vulnerable, but I really love that in a business owner, because vulnerability is a huge strength. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I do want to just, say to our audience that, and to you as a reminder, that we will have contact information in the show notes. So we can go ahead and just ask if it's okay if our listeners, know how they can contact you.
absolutely. So you can call us anytime between 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And our phone number is 423-838-0176. And then you can also email us at contact@blossomandrhyme.com. And then we're very active on social media, of course. So you can message us on Instagram if you'd like that as well.
That is
Sweet.
awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you for coming on Resin Mastery. It's been a real pleasure, and look forward to maybe we can do this again sometime soon.
I would love that.
Everyone listening, thank you so much for listening. Again, an honor. Thank you so much. Until next time.